So let's have a look at the new Git features in version 7.1 of the Datavault Builder. Git code versioning was supported already before, but you had to use your own Git client. On client's request, we have built in now a Git client into Datavault Builder, which makes the process a little bit more smooth. So let's have a look on what we have here. I have preloaded my demo model here on my demo environment, which will be my base integration environment here in this use case. And this environment is directly linked to a Git branch. So we can go to the deployment section, compare our local DVB demo environment against our Git and against the DVB demo branch, which is the corresponding branch representing this environment in Git. And we see there are no changes because everything what was installed here was coming from Git, so there are no differences. Let's go now to our Git server, and on our Git server we have here Gitea. It's a Git server like you could use Bitbucket, GitHub, other Git servers. Just a local Git server we use here for this demo purpose. And here I have my demo branch, and I want to create a new branch and say, okay, let's add buses to our data model. I create this branch, and it tells me that I should give it a proper name, which is a fair remark. So let's go back. And we are now on this new branch. And this new branch I will take now into my local environment in my sandbox and start developing. But before I do that, I add a new branch, a second one. Let's add load. Because I want to show how we can develop two branches in parallel, merge them in different order. So now first let's work on let's add buses. Go in here, my local environment is empty. It's a new sandbox I have set up. Go to deployment, compare against my Git, and now I want to get from Git to my local environment, and let's take the branch I have created to develop this feature. Let's select we want to install everything. We want to have it exactly as it is right now at Git. This is our baseline, and now this environment becomes our local working folder. So it's installing everything. Let's go here to our Datavault model, and as the model is installed, the objects appear, and in a few seconds it should be completed. And this is our current model. It's much bigger. I could bring everything on the screen, but it doesn't matter too much. But just that you know a little bit what it installed, it's quite already a bigger model, even it was created in a pretty short time. So let's bring now only the relevant part on the screen. And now let's add a new hub and a new link here. So we will add here into the flight subject area the hub for buses, and buses service flights, and as this is a many-to-many relation, we define it like this, create it, and this is the change I wanted to do here. So let's go to deployment, and let's compare now my local environment against Git, against the branch I'm working on. It will show me what I changed, so I can go here and say I want to see the differences, and it looks pretty good, and say yes, both of them I want to commit and push. The Datavault Builder does both at the same time. So let's add that. And if we go back here to our Git server, we see it detected a new commit. We can create a pull request, and I like to do that. So I'll leave a review what changed. That looks pretty good. No conflicts. In fact, it's not showing me this yet, but I know that there are no conflicts. So let's go that, create a pull request. My colleagues can now review it. And I could merge it already, but let's assume that the business user that requested this change is on holidays. We need to wait for it. And in usual development pipelines in the data warehouse area, we would have an issue. But here, not really. I just reset my sandbox. I could set it back to nothing and then start from scratch, but as it is a very similar feature I will develop, I just connect here to my Git repository. And I take the let's add load branch. It will show me the differences that I have. I need to remove the stuff that I did in the other stuff, in the other feature branch. Just to be sure, I compare now my local environment against Git. So we see now that it is exactly the same. Environments are equal. So we are now switched to our feature branch for adding a new load. So let's go back in here. And for adding a load, I need to add here as well some data. So I'm adding a load into my staging area. I just do a flat load. I load the data immediately, so I can check it. I could preview it, but that's not what I'm showing here in this video. So let's go in here. Let's just add the business key for that, which will create our hub load, satellite load tracking objects, modify the job to include that, so it will be really production ready. And this here is a combination of keys, so we could check that this here is not unique yet, so we could test it, we do our iterations, and we compose our business key, test it again, and at some point we detect there is one more key part that we need to add, and now our business key is unique. And this will allow now automatically to create a satellite, all the loads are really production ready into the raw vault. And we can start loading the data, we could test it, and that's what I usually would do. But here for this, I'm pretty sure I've done this before, this will work out. So I go again into the deployment module. Let's compare that again. And what we see now is what are the differences that I just did. I added a staging table, I added a hub load and satellite. I say I want to just include the satellite, and tells me no, you don't. You need to include this other stuff, otherwise it will not work. So let's just be sure, include everything. Let's commit that into our Git repository. So let's go back in here. Let's go back to our branches, and we see it detected that as well on our second feature, which was developed later. I can create now a pull request. Let's review the changes that we have here. All of this is human readable. We see the columns. But in fact, now as we are adding all this stuff, I could reduce it and get only the message of the files. And already by the file names, I know what happened. See, in the Datavault area, hub flight, a load was added, and the load is coming from this staging table. Now here the same, for the hub flight, a satellite was added, and this is the source table. And here in the staging area, for the system flight, the staging table was added called on time. That's pretty nice to review it. So I could add here comments, say, hey, that's really good, but let's adjust here. Pull request. I send it to my colleague, usually he would review it. And now what we can do is we can go to the files changed, and I can just mark that I viewed these files, that I reviewed the changes. That's really cool. But this is a functionality of the Git server. So let's go back here, see which kind of commits I had, how many changes. And now we can go, and what I do now, I do go in different orders. So I go first for the later feature, because we branched it in our own branch. Git knows exactly what the changes are, so we can now merge first our feature that we developed later. We could delete our branch. I'm not doing this yet. So let's go back to our code. Let's have a look at the branch. And what we see now, this is merged. So this went into DVB demo. And we can test that. So let's go and let's compare again our demo environment against the corresponding branch in Git. And what we need to do is change direction. We want to deploy from Git to our local environment. Now we see the create messages. We can say that we want to see everything which is not equal. And now we see exactly the objects that we developed in this feature. So let's deploy that. And now, 1 week later, our colleague that was on holidays comes back and say, yes, that's exactly how I imagined it. So can you go please in and merge in this stuff? So we merge as well this here. I could delete the branch. I'm not doing this on purpose. So let's go back to the code and the branches list, and both of them are merged now. So again, what we do here is we compare against a Git environment. We want to go from Git to our local environment. From the merge branch, we see here as well the merge message based on our pull request. And yes, that looks quite good. So let's deploy that. And let's go to the Datavault area. And if I click here, I see I have the new element from one feature with the link. We have the new satellite. And this satellite includes as well the loads and everything. I can just start it. It integrated very well. And just a few seconds later, we should get the information. The problem is I didn't trigger the staging area, so this element will still be empty. Doesn't matter because the job was as well updated. So let's go to the jobs area. Let's start it. We see this was never executed. And here it will now create a staging load everything into the hub and the satellite. So we have really production ready implementation of the integration of the two features. So let's go back in here. Let's test the satellite now. And we have the data here. And this is how distributed development works. So I showed it now with one single sandbox where I developed two features one after the other, but it doesn't matter. I could have used two different sandboxes work in parallel just to confuse you, but that's usually how it works because I'm not alone then, but you have several developers developing different features and merging in different speeds. And even if many tools claim they support Git, they don't do it in this way of allowing you to merge on branch before you merge your data models. But this here is well very unique to only very few tools that support this kind of working and really making you agile.